name is Rachel Harkness, and I'm the programming manager here at the library. I'm joined today by Kelly Blue, our teen librarian, and we're very excited to be hosting this Young Writers and Leaders live event with the Telling Room. Today, we're celebrating the launch of Voice of a Lion, a collection of stories from the Telling Room's Young Writers and Leaders program. Three of the book's authors are here today with us: Amira Doale, Fatimah Lamloon, and Johan Sifa will read their pieces and answer questions from their teacher, Moon Machar. Amira is the author of the story Jasmine and Clementine. She is a freshman at Portland High School, and her story takes place in the middle of the spring in Damascus, Syria, and while Amira is at school and the city is under attack. In the future, Amira Doale hopes to get a career in the criminal justice field. Fatimah Lamloon is a sophomore at Casco Bay High School. She grew very fond of writing when she first started at the Telling Room. She then wrote a story called Soup about an experience she had while volunteering at the Preble Street food shelter that she still applies to her life now. Outside of the Telling Room, Fatimah enjoys singing and going to the beach with her friends and family. And lastly, Johan Sifa lives in Portland, Maine, and is a senior at Casco Bay High School. She's the oldest of four, and whenever she has time for herself, she sings, writes, and reads. Her story, The Expression of My Soul, is her first published story. So I'll let Moon take over from here, and thanks for tuning in.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Moon Machar. I am one of the teachers of Young Writers and Leaders at the Telling Room. This is my first year teaching, and I'm sorry for the noise. I'm going to apologize right now. I am outside, so there are a lot of cars coming. So I have had the absolute pleasure and honor of teaching with my fellow teachers, but even more importantly, being able to engage and learn from so many of the young people in our program. This year's book, called Voice of a Lion, speaks to me on so many levels. I come from a country that has known crisis, and even more now recently, I am joined by peers and colleagues here in the community who have experienced small dosages of that type of crisis and what it's like to have to completely dismantle and rearrange your world. And reading through these stories, I always sit and wonder what it is about a crisis that you want to capture. Is it the clementines? Is it the taste of the sweetness? Or is it the memory of the bitter pieces of it? And these young people have taught me that every piece of it is just as important in the narrative of that story, especially when it's told by the person who actually witnessed, viewed, and lived that story. So I'm going to let our young people go ahead and introduce themselves. If you want more information about Young Writers and Leaders, it is a year-long after-school program that happens at the Telling Room on Commercial Street. We work with international students and first generations in really helping them to hone their writing skills, but more importantly, grow and understand the importance of capturing their stories authentic to themselves. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and allow Amira, then Joanne, then Fatimah to just introduce yourselves in your voice.
Hello, I'm Amira Doale, and I'm the writer of Jasmine and Clementine, and I like apple juice.
I'm Johan Sifa, author of The Expression of My Soul. I like many things. I love playing tennis, as you can probably see. And I also love volleyball and just having fun and hanging out with friends.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fatimah. I like doing a lot of things, but mostly I like to sing and write, so that can go hand in hand with songwriting. I really enjoyed being in the Telling Room. I've met so many new people that I never thought I would cross paths with. And we all have the same thoughts, but in a way they're all different. And so it's so beautiful. I love the Telling Room.
Thank you so much, ladies. So there will be opportunities to ask questions at the end, but if you want to begin to just type them out in chat, just so we could start to get a tally of them, that would be really incredible. I know you're about to be blown away by these stories, because I was, and so many of my colleagues and peers and fellow teachers were. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it and start with Amira and her beautiful story about clementines.
I flinched just like all the times my brother would sneak up on me. The first window near the wall shattered, making some kids shriek in horror. Their world was moving, but mine stopped a long time ago. The hot sweat on my forehead turned cold, just like my heart. My mind was filled with anxiety and numbness, and I was pulled by my art teacher to walk to the basement, where the kindergartners were taught. Kids were sitting on the floor, the shock still written on their faces. I ran around, eyes wide open, searching for my older brother. I walked past the same mint-colored walls about 5 times. I saw his friends and peers, but no one knew where he was. Have you seen Abdul Qadir? All I got was a silent headshake, signaling no. The worst thoughts took over my brain. It was inevitable to think the worst. Just as I was giving up, I was pulled by my bag. There he was, his eyes red from crying, and his hands were fidgety from worrying about me. I could not help but smile. Was I crazy? Finding my brother only proved to me that whatever was happening outside could only be fake. Where were you? Why did you not just stay with your teacher? Abdul Qadir asked. I stood there with a stupid smile on my face while my brother scolded me for searching for him. I was a bit unfamiliar with the basement since big kids were usually not allowed. I walked around with my brother, listening to the cries of kids my age. They were all wondering if they would get to live one more day, or if they would get to play on the swings ever again. The sounds of whimpers and gunshots were going back and forth, competing to see which could be louder. Once the gunshots were few, the school guard opened the door for families to pick up their kids. I heard the guard's voice calling our names, and in distance, my oldest brothers, Hamza and Muhammad, were at the door. They were looking at us if we were in a dungeon. My brother Hamza held my hand securely as we pressed ourselves against the rough walls of the alleyway leading to our apartment. The rolling shutter doors for each store in the alleyway were all closed, which was very rare in a trusting community. Gunshots were getting closer and closer, and some man with a shemagh on his head ran down the alleyway. The man wore big black boots and had a huge beard. He had a gun in his hand. I could not help but focus on the vile item. He continued running in the opposite direction, where my school was located. He stopped for a moment, about 15 feet away from where we were standing, and started shooting. The shots stopped. I closed my eyes as the gunshots and my heartbeat deafened me. The shots stopped, but my heart was still beating. We continued running against the walls and reached the empty streets. All I could see from distance was the body of a man. He was lying in the spacious and empty parking lot, swimming in his own pool of blood. The body laid on the pavement without help. The smell of jasmine and clementine. Busy streets that were filled with neighbors catching up, the chatting noises of gossiping old ladies who were caught up in their conversations instead of rushing back home to make lunch before their kids came back home. All of that was completely gone. The smell of jasmine and clementine was simply not there. The sounds of conversations between neighbors and old ladies were now replaced by gunshots. The busy streets were completely deserted for the ghosts to roam around. My brother opened the door to our building, and the cool air hit my face like the times I would rush home from school due to the unbearable heat waves. We went up the stairs and knocked on the door. Amal opened the door, and peace settled on her face. My house was not as busy as it would be on a regular Thursday. The rocking laundry machine and TV were off. Abdul Qadir and I had a drink of water, but did not change out of our blue uniforms. Instead of making lunch, we were frying the life out of our brains. We had no whereabouts of my mom, who went to get my sister from an all-girls school about 40 minutes away. She ended up coming home with a dark shadow creeping on her face. Amrin was not with her, and we had no way to get in touch with her. My body was completely numb. unable to handle more hits. The phone rang, and the number was my mom's friend. But it was my sister telling my mom she is about to come home. The longest 15 minutes in my life passed by before there were soft knocks on my door. My mom rushed to the door faster than Usain Bolt near the finishing line. The rest of the night went by a blur. Jasmine and Clementine, unafraid to share their fresh and bold smell with the world, until they meet cruel humans and are stripped of their youthful fragrance. My 9-year-old child was never able to trust the world again. 9-year-old Amira was traumatized by the violent acts and decisions of adults. To this day, I ask myself if there was a certain way I should have reacted. The child in me has disappeared and had to start learning how to be an adult. Instead of thinking about how to solve word problems, I was thinking how to solve world problems. The 9-year-old Amira has yet to return.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Amira. That was beautiful. It's even more beautiful when we hear it from you. It's so interesting to see when we go through crisis, what we choose as reference points, and sometimes it's sense, and sense that sometimes draw beauty can sometimes also be reference points to memories in our minds of stories that we have not moved on from and that still live in us very potently. Thank you. So next we are going to go to Joanne, please.
Hi everybody, Joanne here, and this is the expression of my soul. This past December, we had a 3-day conference, which was the most I'd ever performed. During practice, we had someone from another youth group train us, and I had shared a lot of songs I wanted to. When it was my turn to lead, I don't know what had happened to me. I loved the song and wanted to lead it, but suddenly I lost confidence in myself. My friends told me I should do it, but it was so hard. I started to cry. Every time someone started singing, I felt this fear. It was only mental, but it also made me shake. It felt as if all the hope, confidence, wisdom, and intelligence I had was being drained out of me. It felt like fear was taking over, and I let this voice say, "You're not able, you're not able." I believed it was going to be my last performance, that I would never sing again. About a week later, I was texting with my friend Jeremiah from Lubumbashi, the city where my grandparents live, about having a lack of confidence, and out of nowhere, he didn't even know what happened with my choir. He told me I had to pursue music. He told me that he could see me singing, conducting performances, and creating YouTube channels, and said I shouldn't give up. I opened up to him and told him what had happened to me in the choir. I felt like somehow he was an angel sent to revive me, like my cry went up to heaven and it came back through him. I still had a lot of work to do. I had to rebuild my confidence, and I had to repeat myself positive thoughts. That Sunday, I went back to the choir. The director always tells us intensité, which translates to intensity, but we know he means we should be intentional and powerful. I started opening my voice more and sang with confidence. I began to accept my voice as it was, and my friends noticed. They were impressed. Now I am confident, not music star confident, but confident enough that I'm able to stand in front of a crowd and sing. I most definitely will shake and want to give up beforehand. But I know that as long as I focus on the emotions being projected, my voice will speak directly to someone. Music has not become an addition to the many languages I speak. I feel like when I sing, I can express myself more than I can when speaking. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's music, an expression of my soul up to the heavens, a language that naturally made it into my brain, heart, and spirit. I'm not where I want to be with my voice, but I'm in the process of developing it. Music is freely expressing myself. And that was just an excerpt from it. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Joanne. And your voice, and it's not just the music, just when you open your mouth, you move us, Joanne. So thank you. We appreciate you for sharing a piece of yourself with us. So next we have Fatimah. Fatimah, please.
Okay. Brown, black, yellow, sometimes even evergreen. The green stuff is basil, maybe some potatoes bobbing around in there too. All of us melting together into one stinky concoction. But who put us here? I am being held hostage. With a lid, I was sealed away. surrounded by monumental steel walls, the kind that I can never see the full magnitude of, even when I tilt my head back. Wafts of broken promises and lost dreams invade my nose. The screams of agony filling my ears. Screams? Who screams? Well, they're mine, of course. But you'll only hear them if you put your ear real close to the pot and listen. Listen to the man-made tides, cries, and euphemized lies that I've been told my entire life. But no one ever wants to listen. Reality check. There are over 2 billion Muslims living among us. That leaves no room for displaced aggression and definitely no room for brutally honest confessions. Backhanded compliments from your car as I walk by, insults wrapped in a sugar-coated white lie. You left me hungry and cold, but also very tired. Tired of having to live up to your expectations, pick up after you without hesitation, uncertain whether or not you'll spare me, vague relations. Mama always said life was like a melting pot, but she also said not to let their malice go undetected. Keep your family protected. Don't let more Uyghur Muslims get injected. Maybe our beliefs of peace will finally be resurrected. There I was, in an apron of blues and purples, inevitably stirring the pot. I never thought I'd be roped into the pot. My head submerged until I could no longer breathe. The soup burned like acid, but lo and behold, they were tears. Hundreds and thousands of tears rolling down my cheeks. I was humiliated, insulted, and dragged all around the room from my scarf, like a dirty rag. Do not limit me in my power. Do not limit me, just so I can be as limited as your ideology. My crescent moon and my star are not based off of chauvinism, terrorism, or any other ism you'd like to stamp onto my forehead. I am the youth, in the predicament of how to live my life. I want to go to dances, get my license, fulfill my adolescence, and unprecedented crisis. Being one of the many vegetables in your soup, I've learned something truly vital, that I am a living, breathing, crying, singing, book reading, skateboarding, squash playing, coconut macaroon eating human being. I came here to love, and I'm here to stay.
That was incredible. I read these stories many times, but hearing the students being able to tell it in their voice has been absolutely incredible. So we're going to give opportunity for anybody to ask questions if they would like to ask questions, but I really want to give the young people an opportunity to speak directly to what is it to tell a personal narrative. Pop quiz. This is for Fatimah, Joanne, or Amira. What is a personal narrative?
A personal narrative is a story that obviously only you have gone through. No one else has really heard it, and you've always been scared to share it, but because it's so personal, it's really gonna mean something. It might touch someone in the audience that thought they could never speak or share their voice, but when you share something that personal, they feel like they can also share their stories, and we can help each other learn by being vulnerable, sharing these personal narratives.
Go ahead, Moon.
I think it's something you went through, but like you could have gone through that one incident with other people, but then you're telling that story from your perspective, and no one else knows how you were seeing that moment other than you, and nobody can really describe it nobody can describe it better than you because you were there.
I think also to add on to what Fatimah said, a personal narrative allows for others to also be vulnerable through your vulnerability, if that makes any sense. It's not just sharing my story, but it allows also others around to know, okay, I'm not alone in this, and I also can share my story.
All right. And so when you decided and knew that you were going to write your personal narrative, what was that process like? What story? How is it? We have so many moments that happens in our lives, right? and we all come from different lands, different worlds, our families go through different experiences. How did you come to decide on what story you thought was most important to tell, or what story you were going to take this opportunity to tell?
I can go. It was definitely hard. I brainstormed a lot of things, but I couldn't come up with like something. At first I thought I don't have any personal experiences to share. But to the telling room I learned that it doesn't have to be like dramatic or like I don't know. It's just like as long as it's you and it's true to you, then like, you can tell it. How I came to to the story is just because it was recent and it was like it brought a shift in my life. I think like that's why I decided to tell the story, because it brought a shift that I don't think I'll ever forget. Since like I want to pursue something, like maybe not be, I don't know, like Beyonce or whatever, but do something with music in my life. And so like that story will help me like, remember that, hey, you were about to give up. I remember, after the story that you can't give up. Yeah.
For me personally, it took me a very long time to get to where I was. My mentor was really trying to push me in that direction, but I can tell that she wanted me to figure it out myself. Because in the beginning, I kept wanting to write about, the injustices in the world around me and like people dying and just everything that was bad in the world. And she was like, yes, of course, that is really, really valid, but this is a personal narrative. This is about you. How are you affected by this? How is Islamophobia affecting you? And it's like a really dark place to go into, like the experiences that I've had with racism or just xenophobia. And so I realized I was avoiding it. I didn't want to write about this. But like I said before, like the vulnerability is what's going to allow other Muslims, other girls to be more open about this. Because what if they are scared too? And it's really hard like to be an activist like in Iraq or where you are. So I should take this opportunity, me living here with this freedom, with this telling room opportunity. And so I was like, there was this one time I was at the soup kitchen and someone said some really disrespectful things to me. And I told them that wasn't okay, and they continued, and like I said in the poem, like dragged me from my scarf, nearly fell into the soup that was in front of me. And it was a very small moment. It happened in like 2 seconds, but that was like, it was terrible. And so I knew that that's what I wanted to write about because it really deeply affected me, and I never talked about it before. Thanks.
Amira, I see that you just joined us again. I don't know if you heard the question, but I asked, how did you decide what moment in your life that you want to take this opportunity to write out and share with the world?
Well, like my narrative was, well, I kind of like knew what I wanted to write about because this story was kind of like a turning point in my life where I had to like reevaluate myself and like look at myself differently. And like I wouldn't say like my perspective changed as a kid, and like a lot of the stuff around me, like my environment changed, because that was when we moved. It was a few months before we moved to America. And so it was a really big moment, although like some of the questions in the story are still unsolved as to like why, what, like how could I reacted differently. So that's like what I wanted to explore in my story and like share with the world.
Thank you so much, ladies. So Kathleen Harris asked, what advice can you share with me, an English teacher at Deering, that will encourage my students to write from the heart? So, and any of our students, how did you go through that process of wanting to dig deeper? So you always get assignments, right, from English class. There's always times where you have to do certain writings where people ask you to bring what's from in here down on paper or onto your laptops. But what process do you go through, and what questions prompt you, and what understandings or what space helps you to be able to dig deeper?
Well, for me, as for myself, I think when, like, in English class, when I'm told to, like, write something, I usually write it to, like, meet the expectations of the teacher and not my expectations. So, like, if I would say, like, if you want, like, if I would write something that I truly want to write, I would act as if I'm writing the piece for myself and not for, like, anybody else. And so I think when I write for myself, I'm more honest, and, like, it's coming, like, I'm not trying to meet anyone's expectations of who I should be and, like, how should I talk, or, like, how I should be sounding like, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I can definitely agree with that. Like, but yeah, I think just like the way you put the rubric, try to make it not as restrictive and like allow more creativity for the writer.
It's totally all right. You definitely caught glimpses of that message. So I think that what Fatimah was saying is putting in your rubric and making it more open for writers to be able to speak back to it. Joanne, did you want to share a little bit of something?
I think also maybe showing examples of like other students who like wrote from the heart helps. Like that definitely helped for me, seeing that others wrote from their heart. And also sometimes if like someone, I think that's another question you said, if someone is struggling, we had like questions of the day, like maybe that can help, and like just like tell the student to write whatever and not lift their pen up and just go ahead, whatever you feel, whatever you hear, just write it, put on a pen, and like you'll be surprised how many students are actually very good writers if they don't have like a very, very, very specific 5-paragraph essay, like no run-on sentences and stuff like that. Because I know like English teachers really love like watching out for those. But mine is just like write whatever. I think it's usually it definitely works for everybody.
Catherine Williams asked, when you imagine a reader for your work, who are they? Who do you hope these pieces reach? We can go ahead. We'll start with Amira.
When it comes to like this specific narrative, I hope it reaches someone who's like constantly searching for answers, because that's kind of like what I'm struggling with, like finding who I truly am, and like reevaluating myself and like reassessing who I am and my actions and those like certain things. I think I hope they learn from my story that like searching for answers and like finding them can really take a long time, and they shouldn't be discouraged.
For me, kind of like Amira, I hope it reach like my story, whatever I write, I hope it reaches people who are hopeless, just because like we all need hope, whatever our age, whatever circumstances, we need hope to move on. Whoever reads my story, my biggest hope is that they find hope in whatever reading, and just like me, like my friend that I talked about, that there is always someone out there who knows what's going on, but you're gonna be fine, and just like transmitting that message of hope and faith to people.
Fatimah, who are you hoping your pieces reach, and who are you hoping your readers are?
I really hope that this poem reaches out to two different kinds of people. People that don't really understand Islam and are very fearful of it and think of it obviously as a terroristic group or anything bad, but also to the girls that have been oppressed by it, by all those thoughts and are really afraid to be proud of their religion. Those two people.
And so for our next question, I just want to read real quick what Fatimah said in response to Chelsea's question earlier. Fatimah says, to answer Chelsea's question earlier, I definitely see my poem with a whole new lens. Usually when we create art, we are so used to seeing it and don't really comprehend its power. But after hearing people's feedback, I'm aware of the voice that I convey. And it is strong voices that might sound a little muffly now, but boy, oh boy. All right, so with Molly McGrath asks, will you keep writing? Will you get published again? More of your own story or maybe something else?
Get published? I don't know. Like, I mean, if anyone's willing to publish me, that it's okay. But I'll definitely keep writing and go forward with it. Whatever writing job, career you guys open for ideas, since I'm still searching for what to do. But yeah.
Well, to the question, will I keep writing? Well, I mean, I'm a high school student, so like that's kind of a must. But I will keep writing for myself as like, because I enjoy it. It brings me like joy, and I'm able to look back at my work and like feel, accomplished. And I don't know if I will be published again, but if I do, I guess it would be more of like a full book rather than like one narrative.
I don't know if we have Molly McGrath still on here, but did you hear that? Full book next. And we have the programs for it. Yes, come to us. All right, we are reaching our closing. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing of yourself and really opening our eyes to how you saw the world at different times. I'm really hoping that it encourages us to really be more considerate about what lives in our young people and the importance of creating that space to be able to give them so that they can authentically tell their stories in its raw form with no constrictions or agenda. And that is why I absolutely love being a part of this program and really moving in the spirit and mission. So thank you everyone for joining us. When the world goes back to normal, you will be able to get these books and they will be on our website. And we definitely encourage you to follow us on social medias so that you can keep up with where you could find not only these stories, but so much more stories from incredible young people. Yes.
On behalf of the library, thank you to all of you, to Fatimah, to Amira, and to Johan, and to Moon for moderating. Thank you to the Telling Room for being an amazing partner. I have watched so many, now 5 years of kids go through this program, and the amount of confidence and creativity and excitement it builds in them, I just love it. So thank you for all that you do for the teens. Thank you to the writers for sharing. And we'd love to do this again anytime with teen authors that want to share their voices with the community. Thank you so much.